Hello and welcome to the Hamlet annotation video. Today we're going to be focusing on using prompts in order to promote thinking and create annotations in the play Hamlet. The first thing we need to talk about when annotating a text is where to actually make the annotations. Many of you will be using an electronic text of some sort of like what we've got in front of us right now, in which case you'll be able to just in a PDF viewer touch next to the part of the text you want to annotate and a little box will pop up and you'll be able to make your note there. For those of you that are going to be using an actual hard copy, we'll probably want to focus on using post-it notes in order to not damage the school's books. I suggest cutting up post-it notes into small strips similar to this one that then you can just paste right in the text next to whatever the annotation is that you'd like to make. But for now we're going to focus on actually what to write in those annotations rather than how to make them. Today our focus is going to be on prompts. Prompts are things that force you to explicitly engage with the text. There are four basic kinds of prompts. First, there are clarifications. Use these for when you suddenly realize that something you didn't understand before now makes sense. The second is questions. Use these when you're not sure about something. If you're confused about a character or about the meaning of something, make a note to remind yourself to answer that question later. The third type is connections. This is useful for connecting two parts of the text together, or for connecting this text, Hamlet, to another text if we happen to be focusing on a comparative essay, which in this case we are. The final method is predictions. Predictions force you to use the evidence in the text to take a guess at what you think is going to happen in the future. Okay, let's tuck this box here up into the corner, and as we go we'll use it to remind ourselves the sorts of questions and mental exercises that we want to be doing as we read through this text. We'll start with some basic context to this scene. This is where Hamlet has just encountered his friends Guildenstern and Rosencrantz and is wondering what they're doing visiting him in Denmark. The best way to work with this style of annotation is to set a minimum for yourself per page. So for our purposes here, let's say that we will do at least 3 annotations on this page. You'll want to make sure that you're stopping frequently to look back at the prompt chart and make sure that you're answering a variety of styles of prompts. This chart, by the way, is available on the class website under Resources. Okay, let's begin our actual annotation. We'll start with the lines, obviously at the top of the page, beginning with Hamlet. Then is doomsday near, but your news is not true. Let me question more in particular. What have you, my good friends, deserved at the hands of fortune that she sends you to prison hither? So for this small little passage, I'm going to focus on a clarification, trying to make sure that I understand exactly what it is Hamlet's saying. And I look down the chart here and I think this one right here is probably going to be the best. What they're saying here is... So what they're saying here is that Hamlet wonders why his friends came to such a terrible place, to a prison as he calls it. We also get here the phrase hands of fortune. This means that Hamlet imagines it as some sort of punishment, something that they would never do on their own. Let's continue reading. Prison, my lord? Denmark's a prison. Then is the world one. A goodly one in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons, Denmark being one of the worst. We think not so, my lord. Why then, 'tis none to you, for there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. To me it is a prison. So here we're going to pause and ask a question, and I'm going to focus on the what does it mean question. Hamlet says, for there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And I'm going to stop for a second because I don't understand yet why Hamlet believes that there is nothing either good or bad, but that it's only your thinking that makes things one way or the other. So because I'm confused by this passage, my note here reads, good and bad is relative. So is his father's murder either good or bad? This doesn't seem in character right now with what Hamlet believes about his father's murder. I now know that this is a question that, as I continue to read, I need to try to answer. What are Hamlet's views on good or bad, and how do those affect his behavior? Let's continue reading. Why then, your ambition makes it one. 'Tis too narrow for your mind. O God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space, were it not that I have bad dreams. Which dreams indeed are ambition, for the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream. A dream itself is but a shadow. What I will want to focus on here is the connection, and I'm going to go down to what's different here. Because what we're looking at here is two different definitions of dreams. We've got Hamlet talking about bad dreams. We've got Guildenstern here talking about dreams as ambition. And then Hamlet again talking about dreams being shadows. So let's make a note here and see if we can figure out the difference between how they're discussing this same word. Hamlet views the dreams as something that's preventing him from being able to do what he wants to be able to do. He views dreams as bad and restrictive, whereas Guildenstern is using a different definition of dreams, as in aspirations. He sees them as freedom and links them to ambition. This creates a disconnect between the old friends. Even when they're discussing the same thing or the same word, they can't seem to settle on a definition that suits both of them. This shows early in the play that already Hamlet's emotional state is compromised, and he can't even have the same sort of fun that he used to be able to have with his old friends. So there it is. Prompts are a nice, simple way to make sure you're asking the kinds of questions when you're reading the text that demand insight and that demonstrate a firm understanding of what you're reading. All right, and now the tasks. What do we do with this? So the first thing I want you to do is go to the class website as seen here. Go to comprehension checks and click on what do we know about? And that's going to take you to another page where you are going to fill out a small comprehension check about annotating text using prompts. It's a Google form, and I'll get the results as soon as you complete that task. Your next task is to annotate Act 1, Scene 5, lines 173 to 198. I want you to have at least 4 annotations for this section. All right, that wraps up everything we want to talk about for annotations using prompts.